are back. It is Negro Please, Season 2, Episode 1. I am your host, Dallas Scott. My co-host, Mr. Hollywood Huff, he will be here shortly. He's on daddy duty. Miss Tyus, and of course, Basic Trina.
What's up, fam?
We have a lot to talk about.
So excited.
We got Quan, the producer, in the house, too. Just real quick before we get started, your Niners have no chance against my Vikings this weekend.
Oh, they're your Vikings then.
Yeah, so
I've never heard that all year.
They've been my Vikings.
I've not heard that all year. I've known him for 6 months. Have not ever heard him rep the Vikings one time.
Have you seen my license plates? Say it says Minnesota Vikings.
Well, you didn't rep them very well during the season.
No, because I'm not delusional about that we're the greatest team in the league.
Yeah, because they're not.
Yeah, because it's San Francisco.
Yeah.
Okay. See you Monday. See you next week.
Appreciate it.
Go Niners.
Are we up? We're up and live on Facebook, sir?
Yeah.
All right, good. All right. So welcome back.
Why don't you say hi to Facebook and Instagram?
Hi, Facebook. Hi, Instagram.
What's up, Instagram?
Basic Trina's doing our little Instagram thing over here today.
I am. I just went live, so if you're with us,
Instagram.
hey, what's up? Negro Please. We're launching a podcast.
Yes.
And we're going to talk about Black culture.
We're gonna talk.
Everything Black?
No, that's
Not
not.
necessarily.
See, that's a good point because, for people who haven't listened to us before, we're not exclusively Black culture.
That's true.
Sometimes we're just exclusively common sense.
True.
Also very true.
The thing is, it's Black perspective on what's going on.
Right.
I mean,
that's hard to not have when we're here. But we have different types of Black perspective.
Very
Steve
different
is a Black
strokes.
male. Tyus is a Black female. I'm a mixed Black male. And then we have
The white
a girl.
perspective.
Yeah, to add something to it.
I
And then
love
we
it.
have Quan over here who's just kind of,
Falls in and out.
no, he acts like the voice of God. That's what he does.
I love it. So we hope you have fun. Let's go.
Enjoy us. And we'll be back we're here every Thursday for now at 12 Pacific Standard Time-ish.
And try not to hit the table because you're shaking the cameras every time you do
They're
it.
launching Facebook
With your
Live
King
right
Kong hands.
King Kong. Hey,
Like, boom.
you know what they say.
No?
now. Sadly, you only get
Better to pop your neck with. No, all right. So how are we going to start today?
Which topic? We have so many.
so many.
Let's start with guns.
Ooh. But Steve's not here.
Yeah, it's kind of hard to talk guns without.
Don't
the
say
gun-
that.
Yeah, let's wait.
Okay, so let's go off the guns. Let's do.
Because he's a big gun advocate.
He is a very
He is a very
big
big
gun
gun
advocate.
I don't know
I
how
don't-
I stand, so I'm very excited to hear multiple perspectives on this.
You what?
I don't have a problem with guns.
But
I just have a problem with
people
gun
use-
laws. I think in a lot of places they're just not as stringent as they should be.
who can own them, who can't own them.
All right. Well, let's do this.
I don't know. There's just so much to unload on that.
Trina has a question.
Oh boy, which
Trina,
was
what's your
it?
question?
What did I forget?
Did you write it down?
I had 3 ones written down.
Pick
so which
one of the 3.
Okay. Oh man. All right, so
You
I
just-
guess we'll go with the feminism one. And misogyny.
Okay.
You
All
get to
right,
pick.
so my question was, do white people treat racism like men treat misogyny? Meaning it doesn't exist, or in a condescending manner, that's not really something that applies in 2020 anymore. It's brushed off. I want to know the Black perspective on if you think that that's just something that's
Do you want
treated
the
very
short
similar.
answer or the long answer?
We're on the podcast. What do you want?
Short answer is yes, they do.
Well, what's your long answer?
Long answer is it's not everybody that does it, but in the overall grand scheme of things, it's treated the same way. And I feel that there are men who see Harvey Weinstein and Bill Cosby and have no idea what they did wrong. And they don't understand why Bill Cosby's in jail, and they don't understand why Harvey Weinstein is on trial.
Right.
And I think there are a lot of crimes in this country where white people look at minorities, where minorities look at minorities on trial and why are they on trial for this? If they were white, they wouldn't be there. And white people look at it as, oh, well, that's just what Black people do.
And I also feel like that's still even a wrong way to look at it. They both should be on trial. You know what I mean? They both did something heinous. So you can't say that just because this person is being treated this way, why is this person being treated this way? They should both be treated the same.
They're not mutually exclusive things, right? Like,
Right.
And there are different levels of it too, right? Because like black men blowing off misogyny is one thing, as opposed to like there's this great. I didn't know this was the question you were going to lead with, so I was.
He
No,
had
no,
me
no,
write
it's
down
no,
3. This isn't even fair.
No, this is good though.
Three,
Because
three ones.
3 ones.
Oh, look, Steve's here.
Oh,
We can talk
Hollywood,
guns,
come on.
seeing as our
Welcome, welcome.
topics are run amok. I also feel like when a woman steps up as a feminist, she's kind of like, oh, you're crazy. Oh, you're aggressive. Oh, you're fighting for something that's like not really that big of a deal. And I think that sometimes racism can be in the same way. Like, I think a lot of white people want to deny that it exists, and like we're in 2020, so take your ass and calm down. You don't need to make everything
This
about
is
race.
one of my things. I feel about racism and misogyny. All right, white people can't tell me what's racist to me, and I can't tell white people what's racist to them. Men can't tell women what is and what is not misogynistic, right? Because it's how every one of us is going to take something a little bit differently, right? And there are some things that you might think is racist, and I'm like, that's really, in my mind, I'm like, that's not that big a deal.
I think there are a lot of things that are pretty black and white when it comes to racism and misogyny. So if it's literally what it is, there's no way somebody can be like, no, that's not how it is. That's not, you know.
No, I agree with you. I agree with you. But I'm saying that there's this culture where the person who's being misogynistic and the person who is being racist is saying, no, that's not misogynistic, and no, that's not racist. That person doesn't get to decide what is and what isn't. It's the person that's being affected that gets to decide.
That's perceiving it.
Yes, it gets to decide whether or not it's racist or misogynistic, right?
I think that applies to just communication in general. Like, your message is never going to be received by somebody who's not going to hear it. So the way that they interpret the words that you're saying or the message that you're saying is always going to be how it's received. So in that case, I mean, racism does stand on the person who's receiving it, not the person.
So
who's
reality
doing it.
is based on the perceiver.
Right.
The person that's directed at, right?
Yeah, the perceiver,
Yeah.
the person that's actually perceiving.
But I
what's
think that's
going on.
difficult for the
I don't
person
know,
who's
it's kinda hard.
projecting because and the person like who's trying to either make an effort or make a statement. And now, if I don't know how you see racism, how am I supposed to know racism?
It's the thing, though. It's we talked. You and
Like
I
you
talked
said,
about
it
this
comes
last
down
night.
to communication.
Communication, right? We
Yeah,
talk.
we
Like,
have to talk
the
about
great
it.
thing about this right here, what we're doing is we're just having a discussion, right? Where nobody's accusing anybody of anything. We're having a discussion on. We've all been through things, right? We all have our personal experiences, right? And we all been through things we felt were racist, misogynistic, discrimination because you're a woman, discrimination because you're a male. We've all felt that at some point in our lives, right?
For sure.
So,
Agree.
and it's our interpretation of how somebody made us feel. Now, if you have a conversation with somebody, and I'm talking to Hollywood here, and he says something that I think is offensive, and I'm, hey, Hollywood, that's offensive, man. I don't think you should like talk to me like that. And then he says something to the extent of, okay, I can see where you're coming from, but this is what I meant, so I'm sorry.
That's a big
I
statement.
think that's hard for most people,
lot of people.
to do.
which
Why?
is a cultural, which is a society problem, not a.
People don't like to be persecuted. It's just
But you
so
see,
it's hard for people
But
to.
here's like my big take on that, because I literally just told somebody this the other day, and like why do we live in, why do we have a culture where it's so hard to just go, oh, my bad, that's not what I was trying to say. Like why is an apology so hard? Like why you know what I mean?
Because egos.
And it's not even an apology. Like, I don't want an apology. Like I just don't want to. I want to understand where you're coming from.
Right.
I was listening. I was
Let's
listening to some.
dissect
Yeah,
this. Yeah.
and a guy said he was talking about a Mexican, and he goes, yeah, you're one of the good Mexicans. And I've been told like, oh, no, you're not like the black people I'm talking about. Like, you're one of the good ones. You know, and it's like, that's more offensive than what you
Right.
just said.
It is
Right.
far
While
more
we're having this,
offensive.
right?
It is far more.
But it's
offensive.
Yes.
one of those things where I'm trying to understand, okay, what are you really trying to say?
Right.
maybe
You know what I mean? Like, what do you
right.
really mean? You
And
know,
maybe educate in a way where you don't feel prosecuted.
because there's a way, like just for example,
Persecuted. Damn it.
yeah, if you
Typical
said that to me, there might be a thing where, you know what, I need to really understand where this person is coming from. They might have meant it in the worst way, like I'm kind of taking it. You know what I mean? But they may have not really even meant it that way. They just said it wrong. You know what I mean? Like
sometimes people don't have the vocabulary to
Yes.
say what they mean,
Right.
right? So you use
Me, party of me.
I mean, no, I'm there with you.
Yeah,
like, there are plenty of times I say something and people go, oh, wait, and then instantly I stop and think, okay,
How could I have said
if this is their reaction, they missed what I was trying to say.
Right.
You know what I mean? So let me back up and let me hear them, so I can understand what they think I said.
Right.
And then because they clearly didn't hear what I just said. You
And
know
that
what I mean?
circles back
I
to
think
that
a lot of people
communication.
also just go into conversations with absolutely no consideration for who they're actually talking to. A lot of people like to talk at people and not talk with people.
That's
Ooh,
a
great
whole
statement.
that's
They
a
wanna be
whole
heard.
worldwide
Yeah.
Yeah.
thing
Not
right
just
there.
I
a black
think that's
thing.
a big issue
yes.
I was at
with
the
communication.
I went to the gym yesterday, and
Did you post pictures on Facebook?
no, I didn't.
It didn't
Didn't-
happen.
didn't happen.
yourself?
I hate
New year,
selfies.
new us.
But so like I go in, right, and I try to use like the same lockers, or at least one in the same area, because I'll forget where my stuff is at, right? So, but anyway, I go in, I turn, and there's two guys kind of in the corner, and as I come around the corner, I could hear them as I'm coming around the corner, but when I turn the corner, instantly they're like, "Da, da, 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 da." Like, you know, they whispering, and I'm like, "They talking about cocaine or something?" Like, you know, whatever, like. You know, and I'm trying like to not pay attention, but then they kind of gradually start to get louder back to where they were at. And I'm hearing their conversation as I'm changing clothes. And it goes along the lines of, you know, these are two older guys, both probably like in their late 50s, maybe 60s, early 60s. And they're both like, yeah, when I was a kid, you know, my dad used to beat me and, you know, I turned out fine. And, you know, when I was in college, I did this and that and that. And they're exchanging these stories about things they did, you know, 30 and 40 years ago that were highly inappropriate. You know what I mean? And even the way they were talking about like how their parents treated them. I'm sitting here thinking like, yeah, I got whoopings too. And sometimes like it was child abuse, bro. Like, but I'm hearing them talk about these things and comparing and saying like, you know what? Today's kids are soft. They could never endure or go through like the things that we went through. You know, my granddad was in World War II. Like, these are literally what they
But
things they were
we
saying.
heard that from our grandparents too. We were told we were
But
soft,
here's the
like,
thing,
School
like,
up
and,
the hill both ways.
Yeah.
and here's the thing about
No
like,
shoes.
right, you know,
No.
it doesn't matter if it's about like racism or if the topic is like these millennials are too soft, or no matter what the topic is, like there's always going to be an extreme that people try to take it. And the example I'm trying to give here is that they might be right that these young kids are too soft. However, some of the things they were saying they did, just because it was accepted doesn't make it right. Like, that didn't make it appropriate.
Right.
You see what I'm
And
saying?
the
Like,
fact that you're comparing these two, are you really okay? Did you really
Well,
turn out
and
fine?
that's-
Because it sounds like you have a problem with change and accepting the things that were
Right.
probably offensive
Right.
then,
100
and you don't want to accept that now.
100%. That's exactly what it is in most cases. Is they like the world
Not
the way it
accepted.
was back then. That's how they grew up. So it's one of those things where it's like when people say like, "Oh, you're scared of hard work." No, I just don't want to work in a coal mine and die when I'm 45 of the black lung or
Right,
whatever.
right,
You know
right,
what I
right.
mean? Like, and it's, you know, we hear these people that talk about like these things like, yeah, that's how it was. But I don't want to suffer the way you suffered. Sorry.
Right.
If you ask an old person, you know, somebody who's worked in a coal mine, somebody who's fought in some of these wars like Vietnam, or there's fewer like, you know, World War II survivors or whatnot. But if you legit had a heart to heart with them, they'll tell you, no, I don't want my kids doing that.
Yes.
I did it so they could have a better
something
life.
like better life.
And then here they are now, you know, some of them anyway, they're like, oh, you kids are soft. You don't have to do it. It's like, nah, bro, I don't want to work in 115 degrees, you know, in the sweltering heat, carrying drywall up 12 flights of stairs just to say I worked hard and my back hurts every day.
And
Like,
you
I
also
mean,
have to just think about the economy in which we're in right now. Like,
we live in a new world.
where are you
Yeah.
going to go and work that hard and get all the benefits that you need to actually make a living?
You can't even
Worth
get
living.
benefits from a job anymore. Like,
Speaking of
it's-
making a living, question number 2, can we get into this? So I was talking to Kamaria. I don't know if any of you guys watch Good Trouble. But there's a scene where they're in like an IT tech type of environment, and there's women in this environment who are not getting paid the same percentages as men. So they gather all of, the salaries, which they signed a non-disclosure contract. So everything that they're doing is very not good if it gets caught out. And these women have band together to say, hey, like, we deserve the same amount of percentage that men make. And in this kind of meeting process, there's a disagreement between the minority women and the white women, because the white women are like, listen, we're trying to help. We're trying to be a part of this. We want to make a movement with you. And the minority women are like, well, you're making a movement to make our percentages go up, but you're not recognizing that my percentage is already lower than your percentage, which is lower than the men's percentage. And as they're going through this, the women are like, well, shouldn't we just get the traction that we can get right now and then make that step to make you guys equal all around, instead of asking for so much out of the gate? And it really put this tension between the two parties. And I personally felt that experience as a white woman who like wants to gather everybody together and make this equal environment. I would have a certain type of feeling, but also I can see the empathetic side of the other side where like, yo, like, we've got stuff going on here too. You can't just put us aside because we're part of your movement, but not a big enough part to get our own movement. So I kind of wanted to throw this at Kamaria, who would have more information.
It's a hard situation, I would think, to be in, because at one point you're like, okay, I'm at the lowest part of the totem pole, but you're still in this movement. So I think it would be hard to kind of just sit back and think about the logical way to deal with that, because you want to understand at any point, if you get way too emotional about the situation, you can just blow it all up and it'll all be for nothing.
Right, but it's hard not to get emotional.
But it's
in that
hard
situation.
To sit back and realize where you stand in the world. But you have to also understand that, well, let's take this traction and then let's deal with that later. So to always have to be put on the back burner of something, it's a very hard thing to deal with.
The question, that's the question, right? Is order a file. Like, do we make sure that minority women and white women are paid the same before we have women after men?
Right.
Or do you try to make women in general go up, but then you're still going to have this huge gap between white women and minority women and what they get paid?
Right.
And these minority women are putting in this effort to increase everybody's percentage, not reaping the benefits, fully. Which,
like, they're going to come along with you, but you're still going to be the one who benefits from it. And you're going to get a 30% raise, and they're going to get a 30% raise, but their 30% raise still isn't where you were at before you got your 30%.
Yeah.
raise.
So what do you do? Do you sit back and be like, well, let's do this fight and get that raise and then rally back? I think for me, that would be the most logical thing to do, but that's the hardest thing to do.
And then you as a minority have to put your faith in the majority vote that they're going to come back and help you, that you've reached your goal, and you're going to come back and put effort for me as well.
Yes.
And I think if you don't have awareness of other different type of people around you, I can't say that a few years ago I wouldn't have been that white girl.
But I also feel like if you continuously make that divide and you don't try to bridge the gap, then they won't.
Right.
So it's a hard line, I think, to tread. Extremely hard.
There's always going to be, especially when you talk about business, what somebody contributes versus what they're worth. And it sucks. Like I feel like in a physical standing, there's more of an argument than in an office standing.
Yeah.
So in a physical job, like a fireman, right? Granted, everyone is risking their lives the same, in theory, right? However, me and Dallas can lift more weight than you two. It's not debatable. It's science, right? Now, there are some women who are going to hit the gym way harder than me, way harder than Dallas.
For sure.
And she's going to deadlift. she can lift 500-pound sandbags and carry them bad boys, no doubt. You know what I mean?
Right.
But just on the average, there are going to be physical things that separate men from women doing certain jobs. That argument is completely different, in my opinion, than the argument here, where you're talking about an office job, brain capacity.
Right.
We're all equal, barring you don't have a learning disorder. You know what I mean? Like, there's nothing to say, oh,
I don't know. I can't say that.
Well, there's arguments for the way people act stupid, but
Mm.
our
But
brain capacity, there's no
We all have the same
like-
ability to learn the same
right.
information. Now
That's
you
what I'm
may
saying,
know the
man.
information already, and I don't know the information, but I should have the ability to learn that information.
Right. We may process
Should you
it
get
differently.
Yeah.
made more money while you know the information, and I'm trying to catch up? 100%. But
there-
once I
there
catch
can
up
also
to
be
that
somebody
knowledge,
who actually sees things a little bit differently than somebody else, and they can see a bigger picture.
No.
You know-
But
you know
that's what
I
I'm saying. But there's nothing like physically, testosterone is the difference. Like I have more testosterone than you, so I should be able to. If we both started the same training program, I'll have faster results, bigger results. This is why men don't play basketball with women. Women don't play football with men, right? But mentally, in an office capacity, we have the same.
Ability.
There's no testosterone that's making me smarter than you. You know what I
Right.
mean? Like there's no human, you know what I mean, like between men and women. So in that essence, the only reason that women would make less, or that black men or women would make less than their white counterpart, would be the person in HR or the person who's making that decision. It has a racist or sexist, or they have a bias toward that person.
Right.
So in my opinion, the fix is fire those people.
Mm.
Like, I mean, if you have an HR department and you look at your company and you can say, well, you know, the guys who do this position make 80 grand a year. The white women who do it make 72. The black women make 64. Like, why is that? And then you look at it, well, they've all been working here about the same time. They all have the same amount of education. They all have basically roughly about the same amount of results. Well, what's the problem here? You know what I mean?
I think you also have to think about in a lot of different jobs, people negotiate for their salaries.
That's
Really?
very true.
Yeah.
Yeah, people negotiate a lot.
The fact that you don't know that or
Mm.
understand that is a thing.
Huh.
which
In
gives
all positions?
Salary position-
salaried positions.
Salary positions,
Salary,
you can
yeah.
negotiate.
Like your bosses negotiate their salaries.
Oh, interesting.
So
If you're a bad negotiator,
this is very interesting. So my best friend is quite aware of that, is always ready to negotiate her salary. And she's always going to go as high as she thinks possible
Of course.
so she can kind of fall in the middle.
Right.
And her sister, on the other hand, is always telling her, no, just take that. You should just take what you get. And I think
Nah.
it's that mentality, like your worth. You know, you should. I don't think there's any guy that's going to go in there and be like, oh, I'm just going to take that. He's going to negotiate.
I guess I struggle with the fact here that, like, I struggle with jobs all the time because I think as a business owner, you want the best person in line. And I, as an auditionee, want to be your best option. So when I come in there, like, asking for a ridiculously large amount doesn't feel like the best option there. So it's like, are you really giving yourself the opportunity to
Well,
be
you
a
have
part
to-
of that company?
You have to be able to tell them why you deserve that. So if you are the best, then yes, you should actually deserve the amount of money that you're asking for because you're the best. You know, you have to go into it, I think, with that kind of confidence.
There's
level.
also a huge rich culture, poor culture
Yeah.
Mentality.
aspect
I
to
think
this,
that's more what I
which
was
is
trying to-
very wealthier people teach their kids you're worth something. You know what I mean?
Mm.
Poorer cultures simply don't teach their kids that.
But
You know what I mean?
Take
And
what
that's
you
take you
can.
can get.
take
what you
what you
get
can get.
it's take this before you don't get anything.
before somebody
It's
else
a
gets
blessing.
it.
you
Right. It's a
understand?
it's a
like
blessing.
like
It's a very
be
interesting
blessed. You know what I
perspective
mean?
that
Yeah.
I was
Like,
not.
I learned this for myself maybe 10 years ago now, which is, especially, I'm an artist. I do a lot of art for people, and I would lowball myself.
Mm.
Somebody asked for an arting, something I should probably charge $500 for. I'd be like, oh, I do it for $150
Right.
because I didn't want to lose that business. And then I found myself doing a whole bunch of work and not really getting paid for it, and I'm dealing with broke people.
So
right.
I have a friend who he's a hypnotherapist,
Mhm.
and he does hypnotherapist
Oh, you
for
do?
like lots of like he's Fedor's hypnotherapist, like for all these like elite poker players, and he was getting more clients because he had these elite clients, and one day somebody misquoted what he charges. They're like, "Oh, I want to go see him. What does he charge?" And they said this number, which was way higher than what he normally charges.
Okay.
So this person comes to him and is like, "Hey, I heard you charge this much. I would like to have some sessions with you." He was like, "Okay," because it's literally 2.5
Right.
times
Yeah,
what he's
yeah,
charging everybody else. But for some reason, the person misquoted it. because of that one mistake, now he can charge everybody else 2.5 times
Right.
because he was like, well, if this guy's going to pay for it and these people really want it, this is now my rate.
Right.
You know, he was taking what he could get until somebody made a mistake and was like,
Yeah.
no, he gets this much. He's like, yeah, that's how much I get. Yeah.
And there's a lot of people out there who are like that. They walk into a job and they heard that, like, yeah, this job pays, you know, 40 grand, 50 grand. And they go to the interview and they don't even bring up the pay because they saw that this is what the job is
Yeah.
supposed to pay. And
Yeah.
that's all they want.
That's-
And they sit down and
When
they
I
never
see-
say
when
That
anything.
would be me.
Yeah.
When I see those, I ask for 25% more. Just as
Yeah.
a general number, 25% more than whatever that number
And
is.
a lot of people, you know what the issue is? They simply, like you, did not know you could do that.
Yeah.
Right.
They just,
Yeah.
they had no idea.
Well, like in my mind, why do you want somebody who's going to argue with you in that situation as a business owner?
Why do
and it-
you not want somebody who knows their value is worth
Right.
more than what you're trying to give them?
Exactly.
That's fair.
And see, and that's something that, see, these are the wealthy, poor arguments
Right.
that a lot of people need to have. A lot of times they get disguised as white people, black people. It's not white people, black people, because clearly you're white and you didn't know.
Right.
Like,
Right.
you know what I mean? Like,
People
and it's not,
It's a
you know,
class thing.
yeah,
For
it,
sure.
it's very a lot of classism is disguised as racism, and nothing gets fixed because while we're saying, oh, they lowballed me because I'm black. No, they lowballed you because it's business.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
But you're having this argument, and if you win the argument and you finally get it, and you go, they treated me bad because I was black, and now you know penance has been paid, and this and that. Well, you didn't really win anything because 2 years later, when the next string of black people come in, they're gonna do the same thing to them because it's business.
Right.
And most people, 90% of people, are probably not gonna argue it.
All right. So
Moving on.
we have two major things I want to talk about. We're going to throw you under the bus, Steve.
Do it.
All right.
Do it.
Where was this at? This
Was it in Milwaukee?
Yes, it was Milwaukee. In Milwaukee, Wisconsin, a 12-year-old and a 13-year-old were throwing snowballs.
Oh, this is a good one.
They hit this guy's car. Guy gets out of the car. What does he do? He shoots the kids.
Pew pew.
Kids are
Yeah.
alive. They're going to be okay.
Thank goodness.
They're going to be traumatized for the rest of their life.
Snowball, no. Sorry.
Burger
I'm
King
moving away
employee.
from the snow.
A Burger
can't do
King
it.
employee in Memphis is making national headlines because she fired back literally at a disgruntled customer.
Wait, what? I didn't. See.
Her name is Ordario Williams. She's accused of pulling a gun on a customer when the customer complained to her about her order in a bizarre back and forth.
Why do you have a gun at Burger King?
Hey, I ain't
Why
like.
do
Have you
not have a
seen?
gun at Burger King?
Have you seen the stuff that's been on TV? I'm not really mad at her having a gun. All right, 93-year-old guy here in Vegas. I'm gonna make light of this situation because nobody died, but this guy rents an apartment here in Vegas. Apparently, there's some water damage in his apartment. He does not like the way that the apartment complex is handling this. He walks into the apartment complex office, shoots the manager, not once but twice,
Two times.
2 times,
In the
and then
knees.
makes the comment. Go ahead.
In the knees. I didn't really want to kill anybody. I just wanted to fuck him up a bit.
What did he say?
That's
Just
what
like,
he said.
That's the like this dude is 93 years old. He's got to be. He's got to be
He's
around
from
since
around
he's
the
gangster.
mob
He's
times.
an old mob guy, right? Like because he was just like,
Yes.
like, yo, I just got to
So-
teach him a lesson. No big deal.
um,
This guy shot people before.
He'll get his
Hands
knees
down.
back.
It's not
No
a doubt in my
question
mind.
about
This ain't
it.
his first victim. Like,
It's like, I don't kill him. I just teach him a lesson. It's
Oh.
fine.
should these people be
Gosh.
allowed to have guns?
Ooh.
oh.
How do you
Oh.
take guns away from mobsters?
Okay.
That's what I want to know.
All right. All right. Should
Are you
Clearly,
carrying right now?
okay.
Do you have your gun on you right now?
yes, I'm
Really?
carrying.
Yes.
I'm
never leaves home without it.
Yeah, it's
Hmm.
yes. A cell phone, gun, keys, wallet.
That's-
Yeah, that's the thing. All right, so here's the thing. Clearly, suspect number one who shoots the kids should not have a gun. You never know what's going through a person's mind, what made them think this was okay, why they're doing this. I mean, it's one of those situations where it's like, you know what, they're not a kidnapper till they kidnap somebody. You know
Right.
what I mean?
Yeah.
Like,
So how do you
Yeah.
like,
how do you,
you
even
know-
decide that this person shouldn't have
That's the
gun?
question.
well,
right?
I mean,
What kind of
That's
stuff?
the
How did- how
billion
did they-
dollar question.
yeah,
How
that-
do you
right,
know
you
that
know
they're
what I
gonna
mean?
shoot
you can't predict the future. Like,
Like,
I don't
yeah.
know. Just and I'll use just myself as an example to not tarnish anybody else's name, but up to this point in time, I've been totally fine. I've not killed anybody. I've not robbed any banks. You know what I mean? I
So
haven't
you're
done
Have you
anything.
had to pull your gun?
This person
Um,
shouldn't have a gun
I pulled
now.
it one time. It's
But that one time,
it's-
you when you pulled that gun, your intent was to shoot somebody.
I thought something was happening that wasn't happening.
Okay.
And I didn't really pull it and aim it. I had it.
You were ready.
It was basic. It was probably because people ask me this, and sometimes I'm like, no, I've never pulled pussy because it was like halfway out of my holster. I was about to pull it, and then the guy like I don't know
You
if he, I don't know if
recognize the
he saw me.
situation as something
Yeah,
different than what you thought
and
it
he
was.
was going. He turned to go a different way, and I thought the guy was coming at me with like I don't even know what he had. It was like a pole or something, and I'm like, dude, what are you? He was like delirious, talking to himself, and like.
Mm.
You know what I mean? And he was coming at me, and I'm like, bro, what are you doing? I'm like, and then as he took like some steps for me, like pretty quick, you know? And so I reached pretty quick, and then he turned, and I'm like, oh, okay, he's just crazy. Like, you know what I mean?
Right,
Like it was,
right.
and I was like, let me just leave before
Okay.
something happened. You know what I mean? So that was kind of my situation. But there have been times I thought about it. There have been plenty of times where, you know, I was somewhere and I made myself aware, like, okay, you might have to, you know, but you watch and you assess and something I teach, awareness, paying attention, knowing what's going on around you, you know? So I'm always aware. Pulling is a matter of seconds and firing, right?
Do you think that there's a way
But-
that they could test that would make gun ownership safer?
That's the $1,000,000
yeah,
question.
You have to be able to
that's-
test people's mental capability, their capacity. Like you
But
need
the
to
problem
take
with but,
tests.
and
like,
it's-
but even the most insane people can seem normal for a few days. I mean,
Yeah.
Right, and here's the thing is like it's not like people always say like, oh, we need more background checks. There are plenty of background checks. Like in most places, and people say like, oh, even at gun shows. Like in most places, even at gun shows, I bought a gun at a gun show. I got a background check at the gun show. Like there are background checks everywhere. It's not that. It's if a person is sane in 19 or 2010, and in
Not
the
very
period
many
in the
are.
time between 2010 and 2015, they go crazy.
and
But they
didn't
still have their gun in the closet.
Right.
You understand
Yeah.
what I'm saying? Like, and how many people are running around undiagnosed right now?
Exactly. I was gonna say if
So
they're
it's-
not going to
so-
seek any help, you
So
don't
it's
know
not,
they're
yeah.
crazy.
So it's one of those things where it's like all of the laws that you put in place are simply going to make it harder for people who are normal anyway.
Right. And that's what
You
I was going to say.
understand?
If a
So-
crazy
Yeah.
person wants to get hands on a gun, they're going to get
What
it no matter
did
what.
this is the question you have to ask? It's not about the gun. What is wrong with this person that he was so agitated at kids throwing snowballs?
You never know. He might
that
have
he couldn't-
PTSD. He
Right,
might, you
that's-
don't know.
And see, that's
thing.
the point
and
I'm
it's
making.
not in the article.
There could be
it's never in the article, right? We never know this until Dylan, the kid from South Carolina, all of a sudden, like he goes into
Yeah.
a church and shoots up a bunch of kids. Now he's got a mental disorder.
So there's-
It's mental health this, but we don't know that till after the time. But I don't have an answer for this. I don't, and because I believe that you should have the right to have a gun,
Right.
but I don't believe that everybody should have the right to have a gun. But I feel like
So do you
once
think
you've
that-
been
Who
diagnosed,
gets put in charge of deciding who gets the guns?
I think that once you've been diagnosed one time with a mental illness or PTSD,
Mhm.
then you have to come off the list.
I
Yeah.
agree.
So
We
so-
take felons off the list, right?
No, I agree. I agree with things like, especially if you've been diagnosed or you've done something. My issue is punishing people who've not done anything wrong.
And I don't
Right.
think we should
So-
punish people who
Right.
don't do anything wrong, but we need to.
Can you give an example of punishing people who haven't done anything wrong? in
Okay,
this type of
so
scenario?
what I mean is like, so as an example, date rape happens, right?
Okay.
Men go out on dates with women. Woman says no. Man says yes until he, in essence, takes what he wants by some way, shape, or form, right? Never have we decided, you know what, we should ban dating. Like dating should never be allowed because sometimes men
Interesting.
date rape women, right? And a lot of the times it's not like this dude is a rapist. He's got a history of like, you know,
Right.
molestation and all of this. It's like, you know, no, he had no criminal record. You know what I mean? She was never a prostitute or a stripper or whatever excuse you want to make. They were two normal people who went on a
She
date
was a
and
prostitute
something
or a stripper.
well, that's the excuses that some people
Right. You
make.
could
But
say
I know,
gross
you know what I mean? So it doesn't there was nothing wrong with either of these people to the naked eye.
Right.
You're
Until
talking about the
these
argument
two-
to take away guns.
Yeah,
Right. I'm just
I
using
see
this
that.
as an example.
Yeah.
So there was nothing up to that point until they went on this date and something bad happened,
Right.
right?
There were no cues, no warning signs.
With most people who own guns, there was clearly nothing visually or nothing that you could say, you know what, there's something wrong with this person.
Right.
You know what I mean? Up until they bought a gun. And even then, 2-3 years go by, and then something happened, right?
That's a great example
So
because like
it's hard.
I
It's
think
hard
there
to.
are some cues with some of those mass shootings.
It's
Yeah.
like,
People
well,
just
I
don't
want to make a
see-
counter argument to what you're saying, though, right?
ooh.
And this one just bothers me because it shows how we can keep, for lack of a better word, making excuses for gun
Mhm.
control. In the last year, 18 people have died from vaping. And all 18 people
Yeah.
have
So-
died from some type of illegal vape, right? It
Right,
wasn't
right,
like
right.
they went into the grocery store and
I
bought the
love this
jewel.
comment, too.
They didn't go into the dispensary
Yep.
and buy a something that is legal from. They
No,
bought it off the street
streets.
from somebody.
right.
18 people have died from those.
Excuse
Now, starting with Massachusetts, states are making these completely illegal. You
So
can't have
dumb.
any vaping whatsoever
Yeah.
at all in Massachusetts. Trump is making laws that says that you can only have 2 flavors of these things now.
Yeah.
And menthol
18
made the
people
list.
died for doing something illegal.
Crazy.
Right.
Right.
And
Right.
you're gonna make the whole thing illegal.
Yes, and like 400 people have died from people with gun shooting. But we're gonna jump on this, and the even worse part. Let's even forget. Let's leave the guns alone, right? For now, you know how many people have died from smoking cigarettes?
Right.
18 people died from smoking illegal vape pens.
Right.
And we're banning them. People have been dying smoking cigarettes since the beginning of time,
Right.
And
and
this
we're
is,
still. In the Massachusetts, where you can't go in and buy a legal vape, you can go and buy you a carton of Pall Malls. Which
Right.
is like this doesn't
Right.
make any sense.
and this is and a lot of times I bring this argument up because it's easy when we have a mass shooting and 12 people get killed or 50 people or whatever the number is at the time get killed, and it's easy to say we need to do something about these guns. But then you look at like over the course of a year, right? And then you look at all the shootings get lumped together, include police shootings, right?
Right.
In Florida, these guys just robbed a jewelry store. There was a big shootout on the highway. Everybody and their mom was criticizing the police here because they messed up. Everybody who was killed by a police officer,
Yep.
civilians included,
Yes,
right?
Wow.
The guy driving the
Right.
Why didn't
they-
we prep
they
this
hide-
for this show?
And so, and when
because
you
it was
look at
3 weeks ago. That's what.
and when you look at the numbers for shootings, those police numbers are also in that number, right? Legal gun owners who defended their home and killed a bad guy are in those numbers. So when you hear about, because it's only like 200 and something people were killed with rifles, not assault rifles, rifles,
Right.
bolt action rifles, short rifles,
the
long
daughter,
rifles.
the guy and his daughter that were shot last week because the other hunter thought they were deer. Which,
Right.
which is
Rifles,
amazing.
right?
To me. Yeah.
But nobody's saying we should ban all rifles.
Right.
They want to ban these specific rifles that they deem to be bad as a start of something.
Right.
Now, whether banning rifles is the right or the wrong
Do you
answer,
think we should have assault rifles?
we're going the wrong way about
I would like to hear
banning
more on
something
that.
or disciplining something,
Right.
right? Like if your kid gets into a fight, are you going to discipline them because they won the fight or lost the fight? The discipline should be, well, why were you in that fight?
Right.
Were you defending yourself or were you bullying somebody? Is it like, oh, you bullied somebody and they beat you up? Oh, there's no discipline. No, you don't bully people.
Right.
Like you got some discipline, but now you understand what I'm saying? We can't just look at the results and
You
go,
have to deal with the root
oh, well, this is
cause.
that.
Right.
What is the
right.
root
So what is the
cause?
root cause? And a lot of it, number one, is our culture. Our American culture
Yes.
is wild and crazy. Number two, there's so many things that we want to look over and not pay attention to, like the mental health aspect of it.
Woo, big one.
All
We
right.
could talk all day on
And
that.
you're considered soft if you want to talk about these things. And I heard somebody even say, "Oh, we live in an era now of like fake depression and fake anxiety."
No.
Like, no, people are now starting to understand,
Right.
and they're
you know,
What
what's
it is
wrong
that
with
they're
them.
dealing
Yeah,
with.
what they're
And-
dealing with.
and they're in a
you know?
safe space where now people can talk about it. I don't think like my dad has a hard time talking to me about my mental illness. Like I have bipolar. He has a hard time understanding that concept in general.
Because he
accepts
spent the first 30 years of his life being told
that doesn't
that,
Right.
that he can't be soft and he can't understand that.
right.
We could talk on this for days, but there's one subject that I really want to get onto today, and we're running out of time. So a couple days ago, I'm gonna say he's a friend, but like his name's Will Souther. Anybody know poker knows him? We call him Monkey. Monkey and I have known each other forever, and we politically we're about extreme opposites of the world, right? Like there's not even, but and even though we're extreme opposites of the world, we've gone out and had dinner together. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
we agreed to disagree on things, and when we're playing poker, we'll
The way it
discuss
should be.
poker and other things. We just, and Facebook will go back and forth sometimes something. But he made a post the other day, and I'm actually agreed with Monkey this time, which is something I rarely ever do.
Are you gonna read the post?
No, I'm not gonna read the whole post. I'm gonna
I was just
because
curious.
it's a long post.
Summarize it.
Yeah, I'm gonna summarize it. You guys have all read it.
Oh,
I
we
enjoyed
have?
it.
I read it.
I sent it to you.
Oh, that's what we're talking
Yes.
about. I was like, I read it.
And Kamari's back on the show.
Sorry.
So, Quan, I'd like you to get in on this. Too. This is because you're a white male, so like I want the
You get some quantum.
yeah. So he's driving down the car, and his dog accidentally hits his touchscreen on his radio, and he goes to channel 127 on XM.
It's a
And-
liberal.
Yeah,
Radio
there's
station.
a black lady on there talking about racism and how much racism is still going on in America. And I think we all agree that there's racism in America,
Of
right?
course.
Yep.
And I guess, but one of the comments that she made that he found particularly offensive was, she said, "There's proof that a proof of racism is that all shoe shine guys are black, and that's proof of racism."
Okay.
It's a hard,
Yeah,
it's, hard
'cause
to,
I-
it's a lot
no,
to unload there.
Right.
Yeah.
And he was like, and then he gives an example of how, back in the 90s, he had a corporate job, and there was a guy named Clarence who he would
Yeah.
see, and Clarence was the shoe shine guy in the lobby. And he was like, and the lady, made a comment that like they looked down on him. He was like, I never looked down on Clarence. Clarence was cool as hell. Like I'd sit there,
Yeah.
I'd tell him my life story, and like they would have conversations. And
You look forward to it
Yeah,
every day.
yeah.
So,
and-
what was the guy's actual view, and what did you agree on? I didn't read.
This is why I think
I
the
only
post
read
should
the
have been read.
post, but
So I don't believe being a black person, being a shoe shine person, is a sign of racism.
it could have been a sign of racism for that particular time when shoe shining came about. I don't think it is so much.
But see, I don't
See,
even
we
think it
spoke
was back
differently
then.
on this.
Well,
So-
think
because
about it.
Here-
Black people couldn't obtain certain jobs, so they
Right, you
found
could-
the jobs that they could.
Right. But
like
a
that
shoe
was,
shine
like,
guy, and
right.
you were in
that's
the airport and you were talking about like how all the black, and you
Every
didn't get a chance to talk
airport-
about.
I've been in some flights, and so I go to a lot of airports, and every single shoe shine person I see is black.
So I went to Aria Hotel here, and inside the men's restrooms they have shoe shines. I met a gentleman by the name of Clyde. I specifically went and found him because of this, and I talked to Clyde, and I asked him, did he think that he had a job that was only designated to blacks because it was racist? And I said, do you think that people look down on you? First, he said, there aren't any Caucasians that he knows of that does this, but he doesn't think it's a racial thing. And then he also said he couldn't speak for the rest of the country because he grew up in Vegas, so he only knows his experience from being in Vegas. And he said in the beginning, like a good job at a casino was being like the bathroom porter, because that was the guy that got to do the shoe shines.
Yeah.
And then you got all your clientele, like those guys would come back and see you.
Yeah.
And then you charged them, back then $3, but they give you, a $5 and be like, keep the change. He was like,
yeah.
that was good money back then,
Right.
So he was like, if people were looking down on me, he said the joke's on them, because I don't know how you look down on good money.
Right.
You know what I mean? And he also talked about like, even back in the day, like the bartenders were all black until white people realized that they were making money.
Yeah.
And
Which I
then
think that's a different conversation
Right.
to
Well,
have
see,
as well.
And
but-
see, like, you have to understand also, because I understood how this woman could associate that with racism,
right.
because you understand the origins of where things come from.
Right.
But do you
And
think
it
it's more of a
was-
class thing, like you keep saying?
Well, part of it was a class thing where a lot of racism, it was there's the
class.
rich, there's the poor, and then there's poor whites, and then there's poor blacks, right? So that was kind of how classism was.
Right.
But black people, as we've always done and still do now, we found a way to hustle.
Right.
That's-
And the
exactly
shoe
what we
shine-
talked about
yeah,
last
The
night.
shoe shine was a hustle.
Right.
And they
So
like
it
took
was
pride in it.
look, we ain't getting a corporate job, so we got to do something else, right? And if we don't have land, if we don't have this and that, what do you need to shoe shine? a box, a rag,
And some shoe polish.
some
so
shoe
is
polish,
it a
right?
sign of racism? Yes, of that particular time.
I
don't-
think,
I
think in a time period,
Yeah.
it could have been.
That's what I'm
It
saying.
would-
But
That's
I
yeah,
all
also
I'm
you know what I
think,
mean?
I think in that
But it
time, there
was-
was also a chance for blacks to be entrepreneurs and have
Right.
your own business. Because you would
Yes, but
rent
it
that
is-
chair from the white guy. Hey,
But-
you got a chair outside your door. Let me give you
I
$10
agree
a
with
day
that,
for that
but
chair.
it still
reason-
was brought about because
Yeah,
of,
due to the racism in
circum-
society,
Exactly.
that's kind of how the job
Okay.
spawned itself. But even in my lifetime, I've seen white shoe shiners.
Yeah, there's one over at Venetian.
And there's I went to Detroit and there was a white barber shop, and
Yeah.
and in there they had a shoe shine and it was a white guy doing shoe shines, I've known some some older like friends of my family and whatnot. My old pastor back home at the church I grew up in, before he was when he was younger, he was a shoe shiner. You know what I mean? Because he talks about it a lot, like, he made a lot of money and it kept him in shape because he was,
Right,
what I
right,
mean? Like,
And
exactly.
I feel like it's not racism that only black people shine shoes. I think it's racism that there was a time that that's the only job that black people were able to do.
well,
It
yeah,
was
and
one of-
it wasn't the only
Right,
job,
not
but
the
yeah,
only-
it
it
was
was
kind of,
right.
it was one of those things where it was like, you know what? Do you want your shoe shine? And the answer was yes. Who's gonna shine my shoe? Well, that guy over there is shining shoes.
Yeah.
Right.
I'm gonna go get it done. So there
And
was
that guy there, he's shining shoes better than the guy down the block. So I tell you to go to him.
right. So it's one of those things, almost even like a barber shop,
Right.
where it's like, you know what? We're black. We got different hair.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? When I go to the white guys, they don't do my hair right. Plus,
Right.
even back then, like, I gotta wait forever. They charge me more. This, XYZ. So then the black barber came around. You know what I mean? And so you go to a black barber shop, white barber shop. It's kind of the same, but it's way different.
I-
It's way
But do you
different for
think
women,
white
for
poor
sure.
people are going to do the same jobs?
But
that
what
black
you're willing
poor
to do,
people-
are
But do you-
black poor people
Yeah.
willing to do the same jobs that Latino poor people are going to do? And the answer is no, because I'm not going out to California and picking fruit.
So
Because
do
our
you-
culture is different.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, but do you also think that that comes from a idea of certain privilege or where you stand?
Well, I also struggle. Clyde said that he found pride in his job.
He does,
That
right?
he,
Yes, because he has pride because he wants those guys to come back, right? That's how he makes his money, by those guys that come through all the time coming back to see him. And, and they know he's there Tuesday, Thursday, Friday. So they're going to come in Tuesday, Thursday, and Friday and wait for him.
I told
think
a
what
player this personally just the other day when I was dealing, and he goes, "Man, you're a really good dealer. Like, your mechanics are great. You're this." Like, he's like breaking down like
I love
my
it.
job
That's the best thing
and giving
ever.
compliments like, "Man, your pitch is this and that." I mean, he's like going at it, right?
Yep.
And I'm like, "Thank you." Like, I say like thank you like 4 times. Like, I'm kind of like, dude, just okay, I get
Right.
it, like, And he goes, "How long you been doing this?" And I said, 15 years. And he's like, whoa, you've been doing this 15 years? Like, he was like, aren't you tired of it? Like, aren't you burnt out? Like basically he was asking me, why are you still so good?
Right.
After doing it this long, why do you even care anymore? And I said, I have to do everything that I do to the best of my ability, or I'm not
That's
going to
your
do it.
character.
And I said, it's a personal pride thing for me, where if I'm going to sit down, I'm gonna outdeal every other dealer here.
Right.
I was like,
Yeah.
that's my
Except
thing,
for
And whatever.
and
And he goes,
Don't
and
make
he
me
was like,
squeal, y'all.
and he was like, wow, man. He was like, a lot of people don't have that, And that's the same thing I feel like what he's saying about the shoe shine guy. And when you have a job like that, and you're kind of dependent on your personal ability, there's no team, there's no helping. You're like a boxer. You're in there by yourself.
Right.
There's nobody that's going to help you, to get the next tip or the next, job or whatever. You got to do the best job you can every time. And for a shoe shine guy, shoe shines used to be $3. They
Right.
give you a 5. Over time, the price rises, and now it's like, $12 for a shoe shine or
Probably,
something.
yeah.
You know what I mean? Now, $12.
And it's not something that we're in a throwaway society, right?
Yeah,
Like, I got-
everybody
I
don't
got
get them
dress
anymore.
shoes.
You know?
I just throw them away before I shoe shine them.
So
I
yeah,
was-
this
so
as,
the key-
as a 23-year-old woman, shoe shining? What the fuck is that?
Yeah,
What is
exactly.
that?
Right.
So for me,
And
I'm
because-
like, I don't understand any cultural reference, any negative or positive feedback towards it. It's just
And you don't
something
see
that's
shoe shine
outdated.
guys because in most casinos in Vegas, they're in the men's restroom.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah.
And I got to say this. In 2020, being a shoe shine guy can't be racist because you don't have to take that job.
Yeah.
You're not
Yeah.
being
I don't-
forced to
Yeah,
take
I
a
don't
job.
think that it's racist now. It's just a sign of racism.
I feel what you're saying.
You
I
know what I
get
mean?
what you're
It's
saying.
not
Like,
racist now.
because-
It's not a
because
sign
of how it
racism now.
started,
It's from
yeah.
where it
How
came
did it start?
about.
Who knows how it started?
I don't. Like,
I mean, like, I don't know who was the first guy that was like, you know what? I need somebody
No,
else
like-
to shine
Well,
these
well,
shoes.
well, and that's the point. So you can't say it started out being racist if you don't even know how it started.
And it's funny
Because
because
it started off being a job for young kids to help
right,
their families.
right.
And it wasn't just black kids; it was all kids in general.
And it's
So
funny you say
that's
that. I'm
how it
glad you brought that,
started. So
'cause-
you can't say it started racist if we don't even know how something started.
So I Googled that and I was trying to find out like where the origin of it started from. And it started well before America, first of all.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And there used to be cobblers. Cobblers would actually
Right.
fix your shoes. You
Right.
had shoes made and they would fix them.
Crazy.
And it kind of like came in that era. Now we just throw, oh, these shoes are torn. I'm just throwing them away. I'm going to the store and buying me a new pair of shoes.
Thanks, Skechers.
But it was
Right.
interesting though because I can see if I can find the list again. Like there's a list of famous guys who used to be shoe shiners.
Yeah.
The president of Brazil,
Malcolm X,
Malcolm X.
Yeah,
Yes.
Malcolm X.
Sammy Sosa.
Mhm.
who's a white
James
guy now.
Brown. Like James Brown. Like and but if you go and you read their stories, like they were very proud to be these shoe shine kids growing
Yeah.
up.
Right.
Like
At some
and
point,
what
you
they-
have to make enough money to not do that job if you don't want to
So then
anymore.
it's-
No,
So then are we gonna say it's like a classist thing?
I don't know if it's a classist thing.
I
it
could
could
see it
be.
more
If
in
you're
that
going to go
direction.
do it to try
It's-
to
but
make money
everything
for
I
your
read from these
family,
guys
then it's
about them
probably
doing
because
it-
You're from a low class.
Well, it's like being a
environment.
paper boy.
Right.
You're a young
Yeah.
dude that wants to make money, and it's your first job.
But
So,
it's
yeah,
because
it's-
your family
it is.
isn't
You
giving
don't
you
need.
any money.
Well, the thing
Right.
is
You
you
know?
don't need experience to do this job.
right. But why
Right.
is it a negative thing to do this job? Being a paper boy, where I came from, was like good for you. Get
It's-
that money.
It's
Save for a
negative. It's
car.
negative because of the connotation that men in society portray what's good and what's bad.
Mm.
And I don't mean just men as in males, like
Right.
just the humans in our society. So, do you want to be the shoe shiner or the guy getting his shoes shine?
Mm.
Because the guy getting his shoes shine is classy. He has something going. He's good. He's too busy. He doesn't have time for that. You understand?
Right.
The menial guy, like the garbage man, right? You know, I grew up my whole life, and it's like you better pay attention. You're going to end up being a garbage man.
Garbage man makes
And here I
75.
am. Here I am now.
Nobody tells you.
As an
Yeah.
adult, but then that's the thing. Like, see, what's been ingrained in
man,
us
good
in
job.
in the American school system, what they ingrained in us versus reality when we're adults and we find out. That's why people are depressed
Yeah.
because they're realizing I just blew $100,000 on college and I don't want to do none of this stuff. I should have been a garbage man.
It's funny.
You understand?
It's funny because
But I think
Nevada-
also, people, the school system, and I think just how society is, they don't ingrain in your kids to try to figure out what you're actually good at, to install some creativity, to think outside of the box.
exactly. That's
So
What a
nobody is
statement.
going to be like, yeah, you should be a garbage man. No, find something that you're really good at that you can actually make money off of, so it doesn't feel like you're actually working for.
Well,
it.
they also try to make you
That's-
decide what you want to do for the rest of your life
Oh
at
my
the age of
God.
18.
Yeah, right.
Yeah,
exactly.
exactly.
I
I've
should
never
have been a
understood that.
dolphin
Like,
trader.
yeah.
My God.
I've had 3 careers since since age of 18, and it's funny because Nevada has a bad reputation of like a low amount of college graduates here.
Well, there's schools.
There's so many.
It's
industries.
like,
Yeah.
Well, there's
But-
so many industries.
But here's the problem, though, right? Am I gonna go to UNLV and spend $40,000 to get a degree to make $40,000?
Right.
Or am I going to go to Dealer School USA over there,
Yep.
spend $400,
Mhm.
8 weeks later walk into a casino and make $60,000 a year?
Yep.
Like what?
And I didn't even go to dealer school.
Me
You know what I'm saying? Hey, my,
Your homies, somebody taught you how to
Yeah.
deal at home,
You know
and
what
you
I'm
walk in,
saying?
you pass the audition, they're like, you can deal. Here
Right.
you go. We're
And
gonna.
I don't
But
know
I mean,
if you
think
get
about
the
the majority
same
of people
because
that
you're older than me or
don't
not,
want
but I get asked all the time, like, oh, well, what do you want to do with your life? I love dealing poker. I'm good at dealing
Yeah.
poker.
I get
make
it.
Good
I
money.
get it sometimes because they think I'm younger.
No.
And then like it always comes up, how long you been doing this? And when I say 15 years, they're all like, wait, hold
How
up.
old are
Like
you?
how old?
how old are you?
Yeah.
You know? And then
You
I
bust
tell
out, I'm
them-
60.
It's just that it's that social view of jobs that aren't college related because
Right,
I
right.
love my job. I love my trade. What if I want to do this my whole life? Why are you making me feel like this is a stepping stone if this is my final destination?
Right.
Yeah.
You know, so I feel like that's the society view on taking those different jobs.
But
And
the,
the
problem
thing-
is too is that
go ahead.
people from the outside, they don't know how much money you make, right?
Right.
You're just the dealer.
Right.
I'm just the dealer who makes more money than you do, sir.
Right.
And like,
And to
you throw
them,
cards at my face, but I make more money.
to them, you don't need a college education, so you can't make that much. You
Right,
can't
right,
be doing
right.
that well.
which is
Right.
such
And
a
then-
bad thing we teach kids in America, that you have to have a college education to make money.
And
there
the-
are mechanics who make more money than doctors.
And then
There's flight attendants that
Hey,
make
ya.
like over $100K a year.
Bang, bang.
My friend Keith, like, I love this story. Keith, when he was in the military, right after 9/11, he was still in the military. He started flying for Delta part time because he still had a lot of vacation time while he was in the military. It's 19 years later. Keith makes $73 an hour.
Yep.
man,
Tell me what that's like.
no,
He only works enough to make $100,000 a year because he's got his military pension, and if he didn't have grandkids, he wouldn't even work that much. He just likes to spoil his grandbabies.
yeah,
It's like,
You need another grandbaby?
he just always like. There's so many jobs you can get on the job training. The
So whose
the
fault
electrician,
yeah.
Ooh.
is that? Whose fault is that really?
that
That's
is
the parents'
Okay,
fault.
well, here's the thing,
Right?
and because
No,
I
go
had
ahead.
this talk, I had
it's
to talk with my
propaganda.
parents.
Yeah.
Part of it is propaganda, but you have to
Okay.
understand the generational time period, right? So I was born in 1980, so you know how old I am now, right? So my parents born in the 50s, okay? So for them, going to college was everything. Right? What was ingrained in them growing up, you have to go to college because all the opportunities were for people who went to college. You had to have a higher level of education, right? So me being born and growing up, I literally remember like my mom's college graduation, right? I remember her starting the job that she just retired from a few years ago. You know what I mean? Like I vaguely, but I remember it. You know, I was like 2 or 3, you know? I remember even my stepdad going back to school. You know what I mean? So he
Right.
could get some degrees, learn about stuff, start business, because that's the way things were done way the
Yeah.
80s and before,
Okay,
right?
generational.
Now-
so I'm talking
now-
about
but-
like now.
But here's the thing. Me growing up, what do you think they taught me?
College.
To do the same things that they did because it worked for them, right?
Right.
We went from the projects to a nice neighborhood. You know what I mean? And now they're retired. The system for them, the way that they were told it's supposed to work, has worked, right?
But it doesn't. That system
But
doesn't
for me-
exist anymore.
For me,
Yeah.
in my growing up, that system changed, right? So now you have, when I'm telling my kids that they don't need to go to college, my mom is like, what?
Right.
You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like, what do you mean? You know, so these are things that it's a generational thing and it's changing and it's slow.
Is it though,
But-
or is it a class thing? Because
think-
I didn't have. I know I'm a little bit younger.
Part
than
of it
you,
is class.
But
I
me,
know.
where my
Yeah.
parents went to college, and my mom was a Tupperware lady for 18 years. My dad worked in a casino, and I had the most. You be whatever you want to be. You want to go to college. You want to be a garbage man, dolphin trader.
And-
It doesn't matter.
I'm like your mom. I'm
Right.
that hustling guy where I've
Right.
always had businesses. I've always done things on the side because my mom, even when she was working, had side businesses and stuff. And I
Right.
thought that's okay. You got to have a side business. My stepdad too did construction during the day. At night, did some side jobs. On the weekend, did some side jobs. And that's how we went to
And
Six
that's that, like,
Flags and
hustle, yeah.
yeah, you know, and did other things. So that's, to me, that's how you should be. But then when I grew up, it even, I took it a step further in a sense where I'm like, psh, we trying to make millions, baby. I ain't trying to be doing this hustling my whole life. You know what I mean? So, but these are now the things that I'm teaching my kids. And part of it could be class, but a lot of it is just what's being ingrained in our culture.
Mm.
A lot of people don't realize the government owns student loans. So who do you think wants you to
No,
go to
Carrie
college?
Katz.
Exactly.
Carry cats on
You,
student
you know what I
loans.
mean? Who do you think wants you to go to college more than
With
anything else?
$1.5 billion.
When you file bankruptcy, the only 2 things you can't get rid of on your bankruptcy are student loans and taxes.
True.
Yep.
You see what I'm saying? So when you
And
have
child support.
and child support. So when you have these things, right? And most people are going to these I mean, how much it's ridiculous how much school costs, $50, $60, $100,000, and
It doesn't
people are
make any
paying on
sense
these
that
loans their entire lives.
And the price of school just goes up,
Yeah.
Right.
And it's
which
only going
doesn't
up.
make any
Exactly.
sense.
I mean,
All right, real quick, Freddie, who is our legal mind on the show, He wanted to make a point about Kamaria's racism and shoe shining. He says he thinks the history of shoe shining goes to show her point of racism. It was a job for kids, and when black men couldn't do anything else, they had to resort to doing that to make money.
Right.
You know,
Okay.
so like
Makes sense.
so it,
Yeah.
it became a demenial job, and I understand that point. But like, I guess I feel like Clyde does. If you're making good money, how
Yeah.
you can look at me any way you want to, right?
Right.
Right,
Right.
but
But
that
I'm
doesn't-
I'm
doesn't-
making money, right?
Negate where it came from.
Right.
That's all I'm
All
saying.
right.
Like, yeah,
Put-
okay, you can take
put-
pride in the
putting
job.
this-
It's a great job, sure.
Yeah.
But it doesn't negate where
It also
where
is that
came
perspective
from.
thing, though. We just talked about how it's only racist if that person perceives that it's racist, and Clyde clearly doesn't perceive
No,
it as
he-
racism.
no.
So is it?
So it's not
actually
racist to
racism?
him.
But
Okay,
something can have
that's
a
fair.
something
But he's
can
the
have
one
a,
doing the job, so that's who it matters to most.
Yeah,
right?
but to her point, some people coming in to get their shoe shine might be like, this black dude better shine my shoes good.
Right.
Right.
And they're coming
Yeah,
in with
yeah,
the
yeah,
racist.
yeah.
Okay.
And some people might go in and just be like, dude, I can't wait to give this dude money
right.
for hooking up my shoes. So,
Right.
Yeah.
like she said, it really, it's individually how people think
And
of
I
it.
mean, you could apply that to even like bathroom attendants at like casinos and stuff. They're the
Mhm.
people who are like, yo, you need to clean this place up. And then there are people who tip $2 when they leave because they appreciate that they're doing a good job and
Yeah.
giving a good service. So
But
I
just
mean,
because you can appreciate somebody's job and how they do it does not mean that you don't necessarily think less of them.
I can
Yeah.
feel
Yeah.
that.
You know what I'm saying? It doesn't
And I
matter. It
think-
can be like,
I think
oh,
that
you do a
I would-
great job. I would never in a million years
Yeah.
ever
Right.
do that.
I would think
because
that
of
would be
what I think of
more.
myself.
I would think that would be more of the response more people have than a racist response.
Can
Right.
you have
You know
the
what I
But
mean?
can't that be
It could be. I mean, they
founded on racist
could be.
But-
ideals?
Yeah, but it's
Possible.
also it's a value ideal, right? Like I've never worked in a fast food restaurant in my life, and I'm never going to. Like because I believe that I am above that. No disrespect
Oh,
to
boy.
Yeah.
fast food workers. I just don't believe that that's where I'm at. That's
you're
not-
allowed to believe that.
right.
It's you. It's yourself. You're allowed to
Uh,
believe that.
Why do you believe that your job is above anybody else's? You
No, no,
can
no, no, no,
choose-
no, no,
I
no,
didn't
no,
say
no, no.
that.
You said
He's-
that you were above that. Those
No,
are
no,
the
no, no.
words
He's
you
not
just
saying
said.
that his job is above anyone else's.
He said
used the
above.
word
He said the
above.
word above.
He
I
said-
said-
No, no, no. He said.
He said,
I'm above that.
I'm
That's
above
what
that.
I said.
That's what he
said.
said.
I'm
He said,
above
"I'm
that."
above
I'm
that,
above
not
that.
my
Don't agree.
job."
But you can say that that's a job I never want to do. But that doesn't
But
mean
his
that you're
reason is
because
because
you're
he's
above
above
it.
Yes.
Like when I see an attendant in a bathroom, I think, thank God you're doing this because I would hate to have to do this. I appreciate that you are doing this job for me. Not,
I
I
think-
would never do that job because I'm better than
I
that job.
he didn't necessarily say he's better. He's above it. That might mean that he values his time a little bit better. Maybe he can do something that he's going to get more out of his time than doing that.
And he's had experience to
You know what
have
I mean?
to be able to get better jobs.
Right.
Okay.
And they're
And I'm not putting down people who are doing those jobs. And in all honesty, like if there were no jobs in the world, I got 5 kids that they have to be fed,
You're no
and
longer
it's
above
the only
that job.
it's the only thing that's there in life.
Yeah,
I
they're all
guess I
do
gotta
it.
go flip burgers.
And they're all getting free
Right.
Happy Meals.
right,
I
right.
just don't like that word above.
Right.
That's
I-
sticking with me.
I feel it. I understand what
But at my point, at where
what
I'm
you're saying,
at
but
right
still,
now,
like
I'm not going there.
I have to look at it like, you know what? This is something that will be better. Someone else with less skills than I have, with less of a mindset than I have, and I don't mean it like I'm better than this person as a human. So don't take
It's
it
knowledge,
that way.
right? It's what you,
Why do
what's
we-
your
You're just in a
knowledge. It's your
different position
knowledge.
in life.
I have.
But real
have-
quick, if you couldn't find any other jobs and that was the only job and
Right.
you needed money, would you take it or would
He
you rather
said
just
no.
be broke?
He said he would never work in a fast food
That's not what I
place.
just said. I said if I had to feed my kids,
That was after you said I will never work in a fast
People
food place.
change their
Yeah.
ideas on things.
That's
and their
fair, but I think
perspective.
that those are
And
the
I think-
words that
yeah.
hurt conversations like this. That you're above. That they're less.
But
that-
he's able to explain
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
That's the communication.
I agree. I just think those words are.
I think you're
you're
just-
Apologize for the words.
I am sorry for the word.
which is
But I
okay,
think
that's the
you're
conversation
you're
that we're having,
focusing
though.
on the words and not what it's about.
Not the
Right,
context.
but the words
Yeah.
that you
That's-
say are important.
and that's the thing. Like
Yeah, but
I
you,
do
you
agree.
can't just dissect words. You have to think about the context in which they're given. If somebody can actually explain that to you, don't just hone in on those words.
What's
For sure,
happen-
but a
What's
lot of people are
happening?
gonna hone in on
what's
those words
happening
and not
right
hear
now
this conversation.
in this conversation we're having is why social media, Twitter, Facebook, all these
Right.
things are terrible because he'll
Agreed.
post this, right? And
And
he
get
has a
slayed.
meaning,
Yes.
but before he can go back and explain
Explain it.
exactly how he meant it,
It doesn't even matter.
the Katrinas of the Twitter
I'm
right?
like, yo.
Are like, you're not above
Take
us.
that.
What are you
Like,
talking about?
Right.
I'll
Yeah,
write
you know?
the whole sentence. I'll
And
write
so,
out the whole
like, yeah.
paragraph, and people are only going to read the first
Yeah.
line. They're
And
not
people
going to
will
read the
still
second line
dissect
behind
it.
it.
But
this
I do
is
think
the.
it's important to choose your words correctly for your audience
It is.
to be able
It is.
to understand.
It is
and take it in.
100% what you are saying, and this is kind of goes off what I was saying earlier. It is 100% very important for you to choose your words and use them wisely.
Right.
It is also 100% very important that we try to understand what a person means and not just the exact words that they use.
And it's also 100% okay to be like, I chose words that I did not mean to use. I meant something different.
Yeah,
That-
Bayline's going through that right now today because he called the players thugs. And what he said he meant to say was slugs. He was just in the heat of the moment. No, he's talking about his. No, he was talking about his basketball players and their crappy performance, and he said he meant to call them slugs because they were like not getting up and down the field and just in the heat of the
slow.
moment.
Yeah,
he
yeah.
said thugs, and he was like, "That's not what I meant to say. I meant to say thugs."
But do
slugs."
you think because he actually said that, that was an actual thought that he had in his head?
I'm not in his
Right,
head. I don't.
Subconsciously,
the words that
that
he
just
just said.
came out.
But I'm not in his head. I don't know.
I mean, I'm pretty sure somebody right now is on the internet breaking it down.
right.
Because he really meant to say thugs because this and this and that and this and that, and you got to stay woke like Illuminati. Like, I mean, there's always going to be somebody who tries to break down and dissect everything you say to add it to their agenda.
Right.
But at the end of the day, it's one of those things like the guys earlier I was talking about in the locker room. Look, there are some people who are just offended about everything. It doesn't matter what you
Yep.
do, they're going to be offended.
Which is
However,
not all
that doesn't
millennials.
However, that doesn't mean that there are not some offensive people out there. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like, am I offended by the N-word? Yes. But also, is the N-word offensive? Of course it is.
Yeah.
Like, so
That's
there's a balance. We have to find it.
And a Las Vegas man was accused of planning a high school attack, and he was sentenced to boot camp. Guess what race he was?
White.
White.
Privilege.
Oh, man.
He didn't go to
It's
jail,
been
right? He
fun,
just went to
guys.
boot camp.
It's
Wow.
been fun today.
I am Dallas Scott. He is my co-host, Hollywood Huff. Our
Tyus.
guest, Tyus, Basic Trina. We'll be back next Thursday, 12 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. Thank you guys for checking out Negro Please. Oh, we got to give a shout out to our producer extraordinaire, Quan. Thank you
Loving
guys.
it. Thanks,
Peace.
guys.